My dying father called all his kids to say goodbye. When I refused to come, he left me everything. My phone lit up with a group text from my oldest sister, Vanessa. Dad's in hospice. Doctor says 48 hours max. Everyone needs to come say goodbye. I stared at the message for about 10 seconds before typing back a simple no and muting the chat. Within minutes, my phone exploded with individual texts. My brother Derek called me selfish. My sister Autumn sent voice memos crying about family loyalty. Even cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were messaging me about respecting the dying, but none of them knew what I knew. None of them remembered what happened when I was 9 years old. Dad was a pediatric surgeon, beloved in our community, always volunteering at the children's hospital. Everyone called him a saint. My 5 siblings worshipped him, fought for his attention at dinner, framed his approval like Olympic medals. But I was different. I was quiet, observant, the kid who noticed things others didn't, like how Dad's hospital shifts lined up perfectly with when Mom's best friend Diane would come over for book club at 2 a.m., how he'd lock himself in the garage for hours, not fixing cars but sorting through photos on his laptop. The day everything shattered was ordinary until it wasn't. I came home early from school with a fever and found Dad in his office. The door was cracked open and I heard him on the phone, voice low and urgent. The procedure went exactly as planned. No one suspected anything. Insurance paid out within 3 weeks. I peeked through the crack and saw medical files spread across his desk, files that didn't belong to our family. He was talking about a patient, a 6-year-old boy named Christopher, who died during routine surgery, except it wasn't routine. Dad had been paid by the boy's stepfather to make sure the child didn't survive. I heard every word as he described how easy it was to administer the wrong dosage, how child deaths during surgery had acceptable statistical margins. I ran to my room and threw up in my trash can. For 3 days, I said nothing. I was 9. Who would believe me? Dad was the hero doctor. I was the weird, quiet kid who barely spoke at family dinners, but I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Kept seeing that little boy's face in the obituary Mom had shown me from the newspaper, saying how tragic it was. So I told my mother everything. She sat on my bed listening, her face going pale, hands shaking. Then she stood up, smoothed her skirt, and called me a liar. Your father saves children's lives. You're making up disgusting stories for attention because you're jealous of your siblings. She dragged me to Dad's office where I had to repeat everything while he sat there looking disappointed and hurt. He knelt down, put his hand on my shoulder, and said in that gentle doctor voice, "Sweetheart, I think you had a very bad dream. Sometimes fevers make us confused. I would never hurt a child. You know that, right?" I insisted it wasn't a dream. I'd heard him. I'd seen the files. Dad's face changed then, just for a second, went cold and flat. "Gabriella, if you keep spreading these lies, people will think you're troubled, disturbed. We might need to send you somewhere that can help with these delusions." My siblings were told I'd had a mental health crisis. For 8 years, I became the family problem, the one everyone handled with care, the one whose words carried no weight. Dad would hug me at holidays and whisper, "I forgive you for what you said. I know you were sick." When I turned 18, I left for college across the country and never came back. I changed my number, blocked them all on social media, built a life where Dr. Richard Hayes didn't exist. I became a trauma therapist, specializing in children who'd witnessed things no one believed. Every client was that 9-year-old version of myself, screaming truth into a void. So when Vanessa's text came 5 years later, I felt nothing. No grief, no obligation, no pull toward reconciliation. The man dying in that hospice bed had killed a child for money and made his own daughter think she was insane for knowing it. I hoped his last hours were filled with the fear Christopher must have felt. The lawyer called me 3 weeks after the funeral I didn't attend. Dad had left his entire estate to me. $6 million, the house, his car collection, everything. My siblings got nothing. "There's a letter," the lawyer said, his voice uncomfortable. "Your father insisted I read it to you personally." I almost hung up, but something made me stay on the line. "Gabriella, you were right about everything. Christopher Bowen wasn't the only one. There were 4 others over 15 years. I couldn't stop. I'm a monster. And you were the only one brave enough to say it out loud. Your siblings chose comfortable lies. You chose truth even when it cost you everything. This money is blood money, but you'll know what to do with it. You always did. I'm sorry I took your childhood. I'm sorry I made you doubt reality, but I'm not sorry you refused to forgive me. You were right not to come. There's nothing here worth saying goodbye to." The lawyer finished reading and I sat in my car outside my office, hands gripping the steering wheel. I donated every cent to organizations for children who'd been medically abused, kept only enough to fund a scholarship for kids escaping gaslighting families. My siblings called me a traitor, said I'd manipulated a dying man, that I'd always been cruel and vindictive. Vanessa screamed that I'd stolen their inheritance out of spite, but I never told them what the letter said. I never told them their saint father was a serial killer who'd used his surgical skills to murder children for insurance payouts.